What's up, guys? This is Teddy. Welcome to my YouTube channel. This video we're going to be talking about switch statements in C#. Switch statements are literally the same thing as if-else statements, but they are considered more syntactically pleasing. If you look at a switch statement, a lot of times a switch statement can be more easier to reason about, and their switch statements are a lot like a lot of things in programming. There's people who are going to say that you should always use switch statements. They're syntactically pleasing. And then there are people who say that switch statements are a bad code smell, or they're a code smell. A code smell just basically means it's a bad coding practice. And once again, just like anything else in programming, the truth really kind of lies in the middle. Yes, switch statements are syntactically pleasing, and a lot of times there are certain scenarios where switch statements make more sense. But also at the same time, if you use switch statements too much and you just have a huge switch statement, it can be a code smell. And I will leave a link to an article just in case you are wondering, are you implementing, bad switch statements, and how you can refactor a switch statement into a more into clean code, as some people would call it. But enough with the chit chat. Let's go ahead and let's get in here and let's code up a switch statement. So we're gonna take void. Void is a way. I'm gonna start this function off. This is going to be a function or a method. However, some people say method, some people say functions. They're really the same thing. So we're going to go here. We're going to make a function called display measurement. It's going to take in a double measurement. It's going to take in a double. Void means that this function is not going to return anything. And I'll talk more about that. This word right here, double, means that whatever you pass into this function, you have to pass in a double, and a double is a decimal. Hope that didn't confuse you. So here, very first, we have to actually define the switch. So we're just going to name the switch. So when would you be way more likely to use a switch statement? With an if-else statement, you are typically going to use ifs more if you're comparing values. If there's like a value comparison, a switch statement is if you're only passing in one constant. Typically, you see just one number that you're passing in, although it doesn't have to be. In C#, 9 has actually made it to where you can actually do value comparison. So a value comparison would be like, 9. Or a range comparison, I'm sorry. So if you had switch 9, or if 9 is greater than 2, that would be more appropriate for an if statement. But in this case, we're just going to pass in one constant value, and that's going to be our measurement. And of course, because we're doing we're having to compare some type of value, it's going to be at the top, very similar to like an if-else statement. So we're going to have case. And a case is going to essentially be this word right here. So this word is going to go down here. Think of case is almost like these words are ubiquitous, and this thing is just going to come down here. And that's actually what's going to do the comparison. So we're going to go console.writeLine. We're going to do string interpolation. So measured value is, and then we're going to pass in our measurement right here. And then we're going to say this is too low. So this is the actual code that's going to execute, but we can't forget that we have to have a break statement. So once this part actually executes right here, it's going to break, and then it's going to continue on to the rest of the program. So we're going to say case, and we're going to do, is it 15? It's going to be 0. Then we're going to go down here, do the same thing, console.writeLine. Make some string interpolation, measured value is, and we're going to take that. So if you don't know what this is, like I said, this is called string interpolation, and this value is actually going to go into here, and that is what that is. So if you don't know what that is, check out my video on strings, and I'll talk a little bit, and I'll show you guys what that is too. So then we have case. So in this, Let me just show you a cool little. By the way, this is all coming from Microsoft's documentation, and I'll leave a link down below. So everything is coming straight from the source, and I'm kind of just going through the documentation on my own and kind of doing like a follow along. So if you want, you can copy and paste this code, and let me see. You don't even have to copy it out, but I suggest that you kind of follow along. It does help solidify things a little bit more. In this case, it's going to say failed, because if it's not a number, then it's not going to be what we want. And we're going to declare this one as failed. And of course, we need a break. And the last one is going to be default. And default is basically, I don't know, there was nothing that you passed in that actually satisfies any of these cases, so I'm just going to default to this one. So kind of intuitively, let's see, measured value is measurement. Okay, and we go down here. Then lastly, your default has to break as well too. Otherwise, you will get an error. Okay, what is this? Like, what is going on here? So if you don't know what something is, you can right click it and you can go to the definition, and NaN is, if you look at it here, it's going to take it, it's going to divide it, and it's going to see if it's actually not a number. So 0 divided by 0 is going to equal not a number. And if this case is not a number, then that's going to console log it to here, and our program is going to break. So if I had to describe it, what this part so this is going into here, and this is almost like an extension method, or this is like a little helper that you can tack on that Microsoft gives you. And if, like I said, if you go to definition in here, you can see all of these. So let's just say equals, like we could just take this one and we could just say dot equals, and the IntelliSense is going to pick it up, and then you could actually do your own here. So that's how you would figure out kind of like all the features that a lot of these so this is like a double. This is called a data type. Data types actually have all types of cool little helper extensions that you can actually use, and you can see them once again by going to definition and checking them all out here. So maybe you want to get like a little creative and you want to actually put your own case right here. You could do that. You don't even have to follow, like I said, my tutorial, and you can, pretty much do your own thing. So we're gonna go here. We're going to go display measurement. So we're going to actually execute our function. And if you don't know what functions are, it's not that big of a deal. I'm actually going to make a video pretty soon on more in depth about what these are. But for right now, if you do know what a function is, that's great. But this is essentially this part right here, and we're going to pass in our 30. So right here, we have this little bar right here. Just click it, put in that red dot. This is going to set our debugger. Make sure that you are starting the debugger by default whenever you execute your program. Go up here, hit the green button, and let's go ahead and step through this and see what's actually happening. So program has paused at this part because that's where we set our breakpoint. And if you want to step into so important part about debugging, if you press this button, the step over, it won't actually execute it. You need to use this button right here in order to actually step into this function and see what's going on. So boom, we've stepped into it. Now our 30 has been passed into this function. We're going to go down here, and then what's going to happen is it's going to go to our switch. Next part, okay, so our number is greater than 30. This evaluates to true. It's going to execute this part of the program. So if we had some other code in here, it would actually execute, but since we just have a console write line, it's just going to pass in our measurement. It's going to do a little bit of string interpolation. Let's see what we get into our console. So here it's going to break, goes through the rest of the program. Let's see, where's my console? Yep, here. Okay, and measured value is 30, and that is too high. So that's going to be our switch statement. Another important aspect, trying to see here, is one of the reasons that you're going to be using switch statements a lot is going to be you have enums. Enums are going to be probably one of the biggest reasons, I would say, in a professional environment of why you would actually use a switch statement. So I'm just going to go ahead. We're going to code up a quick little enum. Enums are actually very simple. They're a very simple data structure. Kind of everything in programming is confusing at first, but I'll just go through here and we'll code up a nice little enum. So an enum, once again, it's a very simple data structure for you to store values like this one. So active is equal to 2, and I'll show you guys what it looks like here, but let's go ahead, get rid of that, and let's just code the whole entire thing. Let's just for repetition. So switch, we're going to pass in. So we also have to declare our state. So we have our state, which is our enum. Then we're going to declare it state.active. Top level statements must precede namespace and type declarations. The variable state is defined a value but is never used. Okay, I think what is going on here is that we're going to have to put this into a different, because we're using top level statements now, we are going to have to put this into another file. Let's see, we're gonna go here, we're gonna have to find an enum. I haven't made an enum in so long. Okay, we'll just call this one state. And we will change this to enum, and then we'll change this to public. If you guys didn't see what I did, I went into here and I created a new item, and I just chose a class, but we'll change it here in a second. And then you can name this state and go ahead, add and create it. And then we will just change the state. We'll just change the enum from a class to an enum, just like that. And that will take care of it. Sorry. The top level statements, even I'm getting used to top level statements in .NET 6. So even some of this is confusing for me, so don't worry if it's confusing, if it's confused you. So we've got active is equal to 1, and then inactive is equal to 2. You could also not even have these with enums. You could literally just put them like that, but just to kind of clarify and keep things concise, we'll go ahead and we'll just put those integers there. So we're going up here. Once again, we got to declare our state. Then we have state is equal to state.active. Okay, if it's not bringing it in for you, sometimes it will bring it in automatically, but in this case it's not. So we hit control, we hit dot, and we're going to go ahead and bring it in state.active. Once again, an enum is just a neat little way so that you're not going through here and just doing int state is equal to active. So if you went through there, if you didn't declare an enum, you would have to do stuff like that, and you would have like a bunch of strings, and it just looks like doo-doo. It's kind of a code smell to have. It's called a data clump. Some people call it a data clump, and basically you just have all these strings in there and it makes it look terrible. But with an enum, we can just put it just like that and it looks really good. So we're gonna go down here to our switch, go ahead, declare our switch, go state, then go down. We have to have our case. So state.active, So if we pass in this state.active, this little enum that we've created, and this evaluates, if we pass in this and it's actually this object right here, it's going to go into our case. If these match, then it's going to do the console.writeLine. So go here, console.writeLine. We're going to go active. We're going to just say active. Boom. Then obviously we got to go down here. We got to put our break because you have to put a break. Then go here. We're going to do the same exact thing. So what's the other one? It's going to be inactive. Go here, console.writeLine. Inactive. So inactive. Then we're going to break. Then the last one, we're going to do our default. So if you don't remember, default's just what you passed in here doesn't meet any of these conditions. So I'm just going to go ahead and default. Just kind of, it's just exactly the way it sounds. So we're going to go down here. We're going to declare new. We're going to do exception. So we're going to do a cool little exception. We're going to do string.format. Then unknown state. So this is like a cool little way that we're gonna do some exception handling. Another topic I will make a video on later, but for right now, just follow along because it's not really that important to understand, the ins and outs of exception handling at this point. In the future, yes, but maybe not right now. So this is string composition versus string interpolation. You could do string interpolation as well too. If you don't know the difference between string composition and string interpolation, make sure to check out my video on strings. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to execute this little bad boy. So go down here. You have to put the red dot where there's an actual variable or it won't work. So go ahead. We're going to run it. Let's take a look at our data structure here. What exactly is this? So once again, stored as active. We've set the state to active in this case. What is this word right here? This is actually representative of, so if you, like I said, if you don't know what it is, you can just go to it. You can just right click it. You can go to definition. And this is the state that we made. This is a data type. This is basically our way of saying, this is what this data type is. If there's any other type of data that's passed in here that does not meet this criteria, throw a compiler error. And it also gives you a cool little way to see like what the actual data is, which is kind of one of the reasons I love C# so much, is because it has type checking. So we're going down here. What's going to happen is this is going to be passed into this. Then it's going to go down. It's going to evaluate it. The value that we passed into our switch statement is the state.active. It's going to check it. This is a more realistic way that you're going to see switch statements, is you're going to be passing enums to them. So going to go down here. Yes, this is the data type that we passed into it. That is the enum that we are looking for. It's going to evaluate to active, and it's going to evaluate to true, and then it's going to do our console.writeLine. So that is what happens. So let's go ahead. Let's actually pass in a we'll just pass in. So what do you think would happen if I just passed in an integer just like that? It's going to throw a compiler error because this is not the type that is, this is not a state. These types don't match. This is actually an integer. So if I put integer here, it will say, yes, you can run it now. But this is going to default because this is actually doing type checking too. So we can't do that. So let's go ahead and let's change our state to state.inactive. Let's see what happens. Go ahead, press debug, put a little red dot right there so we can see what it is. Go down through here, switch state. State's going to be passed into our switch statement. Our state is inactive this time, so it's going to go down. It's going to execute. Then it's going to break, and voila, our switch statement is working. And that's pretty much switch statements. There's really not much to it. There are more syntactically pleasing things that you can do with C#9, but for all intents and purposes, I'll just leave a link down to it if you actually want to check it out. It's in Microsoft's documentation if you want to see like the difference between, there's things called relational patterns now, but I've never seen relational patterns in production. But if you really want to learn what they are, I'll just kind of do like a brief rundown of like what a relational pattern is. So let me just copy this in here. So C#9, and we're on C#10, so this is like brand new. What you will get is you'll get this syntactic sugar right here. So instead of having all the cases, what you would just have is you would pass in the measurement, you would have your switch statement just like this, and then it will do all of the evaluations. So let's just say we're going to pass in classify, and we're going to pass in if the number is greater. So we'll just pass in 23 here, and we'll see what happens. Click that, put the red dot on it, go ahead, console out. We've got our console up. Remember, if you want to go into a function, you have to step into a function. If you want to step over it, you can step over it. But in this case, like I said, we have to step into our function because we're declaring a function here. So we're going to go in, not quite as explicit with the debugger, but nonetheless, you still kind of can get the picture here. We're going to go through, we're going to execute it. Oh, look at that. It actually does go through it. I'm sorry. Yeah, it goes through it. All right, it's too high, so it evaluated to too high. We'll see. It's going to log it out in the debugger, and yep, it returned a string. So here, I'm sorry. This actually is like an important lesson. So if it doesn't log out anything into the screen, a lot of times what you had to do is you had to actually console log it. Like the computer doesn't know. Like you have to be very explicit in console logging it. So if this actually executed, but there was nothing to actually print it out into the window, so it didn't actually show anything. So we'll go ahead, just run through this real quick. Yep. And it evaluates to too high. And that is the relational way of doing C# switch statements. Anyway, hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to check out some of my other videos. And as always, thank you for watching.